I am Jamie, and I find myself in a world filled with excitement and fear. I am 26 years old, and I work as an assistant in a small marketing company. I like my job, but I often feel anxious. I have always been a friendly person, but sometimes I struggle to speak up at work. My colleagues are nice, but I worry about what they think of me. This anxiety makes it hard for me to share my ideas. Growing up, I dreamed of working in a big office and making a difference. I studied hard in school, but English was not always easy for me. Now that I am a professional, I need to use English every day. This makes me nervous. I want to improve my English skills and feel more confident. I practice with my friends, but I still make mistakes. Every mistake reminds me of how far I have to go. My workplace is bright and busy. People are always talking and laughing. The walls are covered with colorful posters. I love the energy in the office. Still, my heart races when I have to speak in meetings. I remember last week when I had to present an idea to my team. I prepared for days. On the day of the meeting, I could hardly breathe. I felt all eyes on me, and my mouth went dry. I stumbled over my words and forgot some important details. I felt terrible afterward. My boss thanked me for sharing, but I could not shake the feeling of embarrassment. I have some hobbies that help me relax. I enjoy painting and going for long walks in the park. These activities bring me peace. When I paint, I forget my worries for a while. Nature helps me feel clear-headed. I often think about the art pieces I want to create, imagining colors and feelings. However, I know that I need to improve my work life too. I want to learn how to express my thoughts better, both in English and in my role. At home, I study English on my own. I watch movies and listen to songs in English. I write in a journal to practice, but it can be lonely. I wish I had someone to share my progress with. I often think about how to overcome my fear of speaking up. I want to believe in myself. I know that to achieve my goals, I need to become more confident. My dream is to get a promotion soon. I want to lead projects and work closely with clients, but my anxiety stands in my way. The other day, I talked to a coworker named Sarah. She smiled at me and said, "You have great ideas, Jamie. Don't be afraid to share them." Her words made me feel warm inside. I realized that everyone has their challenges. Maybe if I keep trying, I can grow too. Sarah's encouragement gave me a spark of hope. I want to be a better version of myself. As I sit at my desk looking out the window, I think about my goals. I want to feel free to speak up and take the lead in meetings. Overcoming my fear is my first step toward success. I know the journey will not be easy, but I am ready to change. The weeks passed, and I felt some confidence growing in me. I started sharing my ideas more often during meetings. But then things changed when Laura joined our team. From the moment she arrived, I felt uneasy. Laura is a new team member who seems very confident. At first, I thought this was good. However, I soon noticed something different about her. She often made sharp comments that cut deep. Her words made me and others feel small, and I knew this was not right. One day, during a team meeting, Laura laughed when I presented my idea. "That's an interesting suggestion, Jamie. But don't you think it's too simple?" she said, her eyes rolling. My face went hot, and I felt my heart sink. A few team members giggled softly. I wanted to respond, to say that my ideas mattered, but I felt frozen in my seat. I wished I had the words to fight back. It felt like Laura was trying to show everyone that she was better than me. This made me feel even more anxious. I began to notice other things too. She often took credit for our group ideas. Last week, I shared my thoughts with Sarah about a project. A few days later, Laura repeated my ideas during a meeting. "This is how we should do it," she said, as if they were hers. I looked at Sarah, who met my eyes, surprised and confused. I felt defeated. It wasn't just Laura's comments, it was her actions too. I started to doubt myself again. Was I good enough to be here? Every day, I felt the tension inside me grow. I began to dread going to work. Waking up became hard because I feared what Laura would do or say. I kept quiet, thinking no one would take my side. One day at lunchtime, I overheard Laura talking to another coworker. "Jamie is too timid to lead. She should stick to being an assistant," Laura laughed. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. How could she say such hurtful things? I wanted to tell her to stop, but the thought made my palms sweat. I started spending more time alone at lunch, avoiding the team. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I wanted to be like the strong leaders I admired, but every time I thought about standing up to Laura, my heart raced with fear. Instead of speaking out, I worked harder to improve my skills, hoping this would help me feel stronger. One afternoon, I sat in the break room, feeling overwhelmed. Then Sarah sat down next to me. "You seem deep in thought, Jamie. Is everything okay?" she asked with concern. I hesitated but then shared my feelings about Laura. "I want to say something, but I don't know how," I confessed. Sarah nodded. "You deserve to be heard. It takes courage to stand up for yourself. I know it is not easy, but you can do it." Her words gave me a flicker of hope. Maybe this was my chance to speak up. Maybe I could change things. But I still felt the weight of self-doubt. As I left the break room, a small voice inside me asked if I had the strength to push back against Laura's actions. It was time to find out. Days turned into weeks, and the stress at work started to feel like a heavy weight on my shoulders. Laura's teasing and dismissive comments continued, and I noticed how they affected me. My heart would race every time I saw her enter the room. I felt nervous, like a small bird under a storm cloud. I began to wonder if I was good enough for my job. Each time Laura belittled my ideas, I felt my confidence slip away. One day, I struggled to focus because I replayed Laura's words in my head every second. I tried to push myself to work harder, but my mind was not clear. I worked on a project that I once enjoyed, but now, it felt impossible to finish. I found myself staring at the same document for minutes, lost in my thoughts. Even small tasks became mountains to climb. I could hear Laura's voice in my head, "You are not cut out for this job." These thoughts wrapped around me like a thick fog, blocking my motivation and productivity. Every time I failed to finish something, it felt like proof that she was right about me. At lunch, I continued to isolate myself, sitting quietly in a corner. I could hear laughter from other tables. The noise felt like it was far away, never touching me. I wished I could join them, but fear held me back. I often looked down at my food, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Sarah noticed the change and sat with me one day. "Jamie, are you okay? You seem different," she asked gently. I wanted to tell her everything, but the words would not come. Instead, I forced a smile and said, "I'm fine," but inside, I was anything but fine. Late one afternoon, after another tough meeting where Laura had spoken over me, I decided to take a break. I went to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My eyes looked tired, and I felt lost. "Why is this happening?" I whispered to myself. "Why can't I stand up to her?" My voice was soft, as if I were afraid of being heard. I felt trapped in doubt. It was hard to see a way out of this situation. I began to question my abilities more than ever. Maybe I should just leave this job, I thought. The idea of quitting scared me, but the thought of more days filled with tension and anxiety made me feel sick. Is leaving the only option? I wondered. This internal struggle made my heart heavy as I walked back to my desk. I felt balanced on a thin wire, unsure of whether to jump or to hold on. As the week continued, I noticed how my mental health was becoming fragile. Nights were hard because I stayed awake, worrying about work. One night, I sat with my journal and wrote down my thoughts. What do I want for my future? I asked myself. It was clear I wanted to be successful, but my dreams felt far away. I felt a mix of fear and hope, and I fought with the desire to confront Laura while wanting to retreat into my shell. I realized I was at a crossroads. Should I fight back against Laura, continue to be silent, or consider leaving? The fear of hurting myself by trying to speak up battled with the fear of losing this job. As I lay in bed that night, the questions danced around in my mind, and I felt the tension thick in the air. I needed to make a choice soon. With every thought, I knew I had to figure out what was best for me. The journey ahead was unclear, and I felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find my voice again. The day of the big presentation finally arrived, and I felt a swirl of emotions. I had worked hard to prepare very carefully. This was not just an important project, it was my chance to show my value. All week, I felt stressed but excited. I was ready to share my ideas and help our team succeed, but as I stood in front of my desk and looked at my notes, my excitement quickly turned to dread. Laura had been making tough comments all morning, making me feel small and anxious. When the meeting started, I took a deep breath. I looked around the room. My colleagues were watching me with interest, but all I could see was Laura, her eyes filled with skepticism. As I began, I tried my best to speak clearly, but my hands shook slightly. As I shared my ideas, I could see Laura waiting for me to fail. She sat back, arms crossed, her challenge clear on her face. My mind raced with thoughts, I felt clouded, unsure of myself again. Midway through my presentation, I noticed a slip of paper on Laura's desk. It appeared she had written something nasty. The words were just whispers at first, but I could see that she had shared my ideas with someone else before the meeting. It killed my confidence. I felt cheated, and that fear turned to anger. Why is she doing this? I thought as I stumbled over my words. Suddenly, my voice wavered, and I lost my place in my notes. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. My pulse quickened, and the room felt like it was closing in on me. Laughter rang softly from Laura's corner, and my face burned with shame. I fought against the urge to run out of the room. My breath caught in my throat, and I struggled to push through. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I felt a rush of raw emotions rising, deep anger mixed with sadness. I couldn't take it anymore. "Laura," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. The room fell silent, and every eye turned to me. My heart raced, but I felt a flicker of bravery inside me. This is my work, and I deserve to be treated with respect. There was a moment of quiet shock. I felt free, as if I had opened the door to a bright room after being trapped in shadows. The weight on my shoulders lifted. My colleagues exchanged looks, surprised by my words. I continued, "I want us to support each other, not tear each other down." As I spoke, I could sense that the tide had shifted. After I finished, the relief was both frightening and empowering. I had stood up for myself in a way that I had never done before. There was still some tension in the air, but I held my ground, seeking connection rather than fear. As soon as I finished, Laura's expression twisted with anger. "How dare you?" she shot back. I expected her to lash out, but instead, I felt a clear sense of purpose from within myself. The challenge I face now is much bigger, I thought, as a smile crept onto my face. I may have opened my heart but knew now that this was the start of something new for me. I realized then that I would not stay silent anymore. If I had made it this far, I could keep going. I might be scared, but the belief in my worth and my ideas would shine through. I took a steady breath, feeling ready for whatever was next. My journey had just begun. After I stood up to Laura, I felt a mix of relief and dread wash over me. My heart was still racing, and I realized I had taken a huge step, but I also knew there would be consequences. As the meeting ended, my confidence began to waver. Laura's anger was clear. She shot glares at me, and I could feel her resentment in the air. As everyone left the room, I sat in my chair, shaking. What had I done? I hoped my colleagues saw my bravery, but all I felt was fear. A moment later, my boss walked over. He had a serious look on his face. "Jamie, can we talk?" he asked firmly. My stomach dropped. I nodded slowly, feeling small again. In his office, I could see the disappointment in his eyes. "I appreciate your passion, but we have a way of handling things here," he said. His tone felt cold, and my heart sank. I had wanted to be brave, but now I felt ashamed. "Your reaction was not professional, and I need to remind you about teamwork." His words stung like a slap. I tried to speak, but no sound left my mouth. I felt shame wash over me, drowning my pride as I realized I had put myself in a bad spot. My mind raced with thoughts of failure. What if my boldness cost me my job? I was supposed to be fighting for my place, and now I felt like I was losing everything. After the reprimand, I walked back to my desk unsure of myself. My colleagues were quiet, and I could sense their discomfort. They had seen the whole thing. Did they think less of me now? I felt the hot sting of tears in my eyes but quickly blinked them away. I sat down, but I could not focus on my work. My head was spinning with guilt and regret. What was I thinking? I asked myself repeatedly. I should have handled it better. I could have found a nicer way to stand up to Laura, and I am a part of the team after all. Time stretched out like a long shadow as I felt smaller and smaller. Every click of a keyboard and every whispered conversation around me made my pulse quicken. I felt like I had lost a battle I wasn't even prepared for. I began to wonder if I really belonged in this job. The weight of doubt flooded my thoughts, and I wanted to escape. I thought about quitting. Maybe it would be easier to walk away from all the stress. As I packed my things for the day, my heart felt heavy. I had fought for my voice, but now the fear of what lay ahead was crushing. I had taken a stand, but it felt like none of it meant anything anymore. When I stepped outside into the fresh air, I paused. My hands shook, and I took a deep breath, trying to regain my balance. I felt lost, filled with anxiety that wrapped around me like a thick blanket. Would I ever feel good about myself again? Could I find the strength to keep going, or would I let this defeat me? As I walked to my car, I felt tears slipping down my cheeks. I questioned everything. In that moment of darkness, I wished I could run away from it all. Yet, deep down, I knew I could not give up. Somehow, something inside me whispered that I had a choice. Even if everything felt broken now, I had to determine what I really wanted. As I drove home that day, my mind was clouded with thoughts. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. I felt lost as regret mixed with my sadness. Why did I let Laura get to me? I asked myself. I had tried to be brave, but now it felt like I was defeated. The weight of my fear and guilt felt like stones pulling me deeper into despair. I wondered if I had made the right choice by speaking out. Once home, I sat down at my dining table and stared blankly at my untouched food. I felt empty. The vision of my boss's disappointment replayed in my mind like a broken record. I opened my journal, hoping to find some clarity. As I began to write, I poured out all my feelings onto the pages. Writing always helped me find some peace, but today it was hard to keep my thoughts in line. I found myself questioning my whole path. Did I even belong here? As I flipped through previous entries, I stumbled upon a note I had written months ago. It was a list of my goals. I want to be more confident. I want to lead. Seeing my own words made me pause. That was who I wanted to be. I remembered how much I had worked to get here. I never wanted to run from my fears, and I realized I could not let a single moment define my worth. Just then, my phone buzzed, and it was a message from Sarah. "Hey. I was thinking of you. Let's catch up." Reading this instantly warmed my heart. My friends had always been my support system, and I felt grateful I was not alone. I thought about her words earlier about believing in myself. They echoed in my mind. You deserve to be heard. I reached out to her and suggested we meet at a coffee shop nearby. The idea of talking over a warm drink excited me. After a quick shower and change of clothes, I was ready to go. When I arrived at the coffee shop, I saw Sarah sitting by the window, her bright smile lifting my spirits. We caught up, sharing laughs and stories. Then, I finally opened up about everything: the stress, Laura's behavior, and my feelings of defeat. Sarah listened carefully, her eyes wide with understanding. "Jamie, you have already shown courage today," she said. "Standing up to Laura took guts, and you did it. Don't let her dim your light. What matters is how you rise after this." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I realized she was right. My moment of vulnerability was not a failure but the beginning of something stronger. I had confronted my fear, and that in itself was a victory. Tears brimmed in my eyes, but they were no longer for sadness, they were for hope. As we talked, I felt the connection of our friendship filling my heart. I knew I wasn't alone in this. I could choose to move forward and not let one person dictate my journey. I could take this experience and learn from it. I could choose to thrive instead of hiding away. Leaving the coffee shop, I felt a fire igniting within me. I had made a decision: I would not run from my challenges. I would face them head on. I realized I had the power to control how this chapter ended. I could either let fear keep me down or use it to push myself, grow, and strive for success. As I stepped into the cool evening air, I smiled, feeling the first real spark of determination. The next day would be new, and I was ready to embrace it. Falling action. The next day at work felt different. I walked into the office with a lighter heart, driven by a new sense of purpose. I had reflected on my talk with Sarah, and I decided not to back down. I knew that I needed to embrace my strength. Instead of letting fear freeze me again, I would take measured steps forward. As I sat at my desk, I noticed my colleagues glancing my way with a mix of curiosity and concern. I met their gazes with a smile, feeling that I was reclaiming my space. My throat still felt tight from the anxiety of yesterday, but I reminded myself that I had voiced my feelings. I was determined to keep that spirit alive and not let Laura's negativity influence my work atmosphere. At lunch, I gathered my courage to approach Sarah. I wanted to share my thoughts on a new project I was working on. "Can I tell you about my idea?" I asked as we found a quiet table outside. The sun warmed my face, and the fresh air felt soothing. As I explained my thoughts, I felt the weight of self-doubt slowly lift. Sarah listened carefully, nodding encouragingly. Her belief in me made it easier to believe in myself. While I shared my ideas, I noticed a change in my voice. It was steady and clear, free from the vibrations of fear I had felt just a day before. Sharing my vision made me feel empowered. Even on tough days, I had something of value to contribute. Before I knew it, I found myself growing more excited about the project. Sarah's positive energy flowed into me, and I felt ready to face anything. After lunch, I decided to talk to my boss about the meeting and my confrontation with Laura. It was important to share my feelings with him openly. As I walked to his office, I felt nervous, but excitement danced around me. "I am ready," I whispered to myself. Once inside, I took a deep breath before I began. "I want to discuss how I felt in yesterday's meeting," I said, keeping my tone respectful but confident. To my surprise, my boss listened carefully. He nodded thoughtfully as I explained my intention of standing up for myself. "I want to be an asset to our team," I added. "But I also need to feel respected." To my relief, he did not dismiss my feelings. Instead, he offered his support. "I appreciate your honesty, Jamie. We can work on this as a team," he said. Hearing his words poured warm confidence into my heart. I felt supported, and it was another sign that I was on the right path. Over the next few weeks, our workplace began to shift. More open communication created an environment where ideas could flow freely. I started to notice changes around me. Laura continued to stay to herself, but I refused to let her dampen my spirit. Each day, I took time to focus on my own professional growth. I went to workshops, practiced my English, and made connections with others. I understood now that every challenge was an opportunity to rise, and it fueled my determination. My colleagues began to approach me for help and ideas, which made me feel valued. I remembered how far I had come, from feeling afraid to feeling strong. Standing up for myself had opened doors I did not know existed. I began to believe in the power I carried. Eventually, one afternoon, Sarah pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," she said, observing how much I had changed. As I smiled back, I realized that I had transformed not just in others' eyes, but in my own too. I was changing my story, embracing who I am, and learning to grow. The journey ahead filled me with hope, and I felt excited for all the possibilities waiting for me. I felt a new strength each day as I continued my journey. I had made it clear to myself that I would not go back to feeling weak or afraid. After my discussion with my boss, I noticed a shift in my mindset. I felt determined to maintain healthy boundaries. My first step was to address my working relationship with Laura. One morning, I found courage swirling within me again. I saw Laura by the coffee machine. She stood there talking to some other coworkers with a sly smile on her face. In that moment, I knew I had to take a stand. I noticed my heart trembling, but I reminded myself of the importance of speaking out. The quiet voice of the old Jamie whispered fears back, but I refused to hear her. I approached Laura and said, "Can we talk for a minute?" At first, she seemed taken aback, but I pressed forward. "I feel like we have had some tension between us. I believe clear communication would benefit us both," I explained. I was surprised to hear the firmness in my tone. She responded with an eye roll, "Sure, what's your point?" I took a deep breath before continuing. "I'd like to work together without conflict. I want our team to succeed, and for that to happen, we need to respect one another." By now, some co-workers had turned their heads to listen. I felt nervous, and my palms began to sweat, but I carried on. "I have valuable ideas, just like you. I want us to lift each other up, not tear each other down." To my astonishment, Laura did not argue back. Instead, she crossed her arms and didn't respond at all. A flicker of uncertainty flashed across her face. I sensed the tension in the room shift. Some colleagues nodded slightly in agreement. I thought that they might be seeing me differently now. By standing up to Laura, I felt as if I had taken a giant leap toward mastering my fear. My heart was still racing, but I felt lighter, as if I had stepped out from behind a shadow. Even if Laura did not acknowledge my words, I had expressed my boundaries. That was a victory in itself. Later that day, I sat with Sarah and a few other teammates during lunch. "I heard what you said to Laura. That took guts," one colleague said. My confidence grew with each word they spoke. They had seen my courage, and this support fueled my determination even more. "You inspired us. We need more of that here," Sarah added with a big smile. I beamed with pride, feeling validated for the first time. However, my newfound strength did not go unnoticed by Laura. The following day, she threw a few subtle insults my way, trying to bring me down. "I guess it's cute that you think you're a leader now," she remarked with a smirk one morning. In that moment, I felt the old insecurities creeping in again, but I stood tall. I calmly replied, "I'd rather be a good leader than a bully." This moment marked another turning point. I began to understand that I could not control how Laura acted, but I could control how I responded. I reminded myself that this journey would be full of challenges. It was okay to feel fear, but not okay to let it overwhelm me. Each time I encountered resistance, my resolve only grew firmer. As weeks went by, I worked on gaining my footing. I set new boundaries not just with Laura but also with myself, letting go of the past fears that no longer served me. I began to thrive in the workplace. The changes were not dramatic, but they felt solid, just like building blocks for my career. With each passing day, I learned to embrace my confidence and surround myself with supportive people. I started to create an environment where we all respected one another. I was grateful for the journey that brought me here and excited for the road ahead. And with each step forward, I knew I was learning to lead and to silence the self-doubt that once held me back. A few weeks passed, and progress filled our office air. I continued to set my boundaries firmly. I also saw a change in myself. Each moment of confrontation with Laura became easier, and a sense of calm replaced my anxiety. I focused on my work, strived to think positively, and learned to focus on what I loved about my job. The more I approached my tasks with enthusiasm, the less power Laura seemed to have over me. I was finding my voice, and it felt incredible. Then came a day that changed everything. We were assigned to a group project, and the deadline loomed close. I felt nervous, but I also felt prepared. I gathered my ideas and shared them during our planning meeting. To my surprise, my suggestions were well received. My colleagues were keen, nodding and encouraging me to elaborate. Laura, however, tried to shoot down my suggestions. "That plan won't work, Jamie," she interjected sharply. Everyone turned to see my reaction. But this time, I was different. "I believe it could work if we give it a chance," I replied calmly, finding strength in my voice. To my surprise, one of my co-workers, Maya, jumped in. "I think that idea is solid. I'd love to hear more about it." Her support caught me off guard, and I felt a rush of warmth. That moment sealed a turn in our group's dynamic. Many others chimed in, agreeing with Maya and expressing interest in my plan. I knew it wasn't just my words, it was the strength of our team. Laura crossed her arms and glared, but I felt nothing but support from my colleagues. I realized then that I was not alone anymore. Seeing the team rally around me showcased my growth. I embraced the feeling, allowing it to flow through me. As we worked together, I noticed positivity starting to form among us. By projecting a sense of willingness to collaborate, things began to change. The atmosphere felt lighter and everyone seemed more at ease, including me. During the next few days of working on the project, I focused on how to draw out everyone's strengths. I called on my colleagues to share their ideas, knowing that they were valuable too. Their contributions excited me, and our group became one cohesive body, moving toward a shared goal. I felt like a part of something significant, not just a mere assistant anymore. The project was a success, and I felt on top of the world. After our final presentation, I experienced a surge of joy when my boss praised our team for the effort and creativity we showed. He specifically mentioned my growth and contributions, recognizing me as a team player. Everything I worked for began to pay off right before my eyes. The greatest moment came later that day when Maya and I celebrated our win at lunch. "You were fantastic, Jamie," she said, beaming. "You took charge, and I could see the shift in you." It was inspiring. I felt proud and grateful for her confirmation. I realized I not only found my voice but also created a space for others to share theirs. As we talked about the future, I felt a wave of hope wash over me, giving me dreams beyond just surviving the workplace. I could now look toward a future of thriving. No longer was I that timid assistant avoiding conflict. I was ready to embrace any challenge that came my way. Reflecting on this journey, I recognized the steps I took to get here. I learned the value of standing my ground and inviting support from others. I realized the importance of remaining true to myself, even in adversity. Letting go of people like Laura's negativity enriched my experience. With this in mind, I encouraged myself and my colleagues to remain open and support each other as we grew together. I could face anything now, knowing my growth was just the beginning. Resolution. As the weeks went by, I continued to feel empowered. I no longer dreaded coming to work. Instead, I looked forward to what each day would bring. The toxic environment that once weighed heavily on my shoulders had started to lift. I felt lighter, and every time I opened my laptop, I was met with a mix of excitement and determination. My connections with my colleagues deepened, and the support within our team blossomed. Reflecting on my journey, I realized I had changed in ways I never thought possible. I no longer saw myself as just an assistant. I started to picture a future where I could grow into a leader. Ideas of advancement filled my mind, and instead of feeling fearful about them, I felt excitement. I wanted to take on new challenges and expand my skills. My heart swelled with hope as I began to see the full picture of my career path. Ultimately, I made a final decision. I would confront the issues at work head-on and continue to advocate for myself and my colleagues. I was not going to let Laura's behavior or anyone else's negativity shape my future. Instead, I sought opportunities to mentor others looking for empowerment just like I had found. I wanted to create a culture where everyone felt valued. During one of our team meetings, I shared a vision I had for our department. I want to develop a mentorship program that encourages collaboration and support, I said boldly. My heart raced as I spoke. It's important for us to lift each other up and build trust within our team. To my surprise, many of my colleagues responded positively. This provided more validation and excitement for me to take action. I felt inspired by seeing how not only I had grown, but how our environment was transforming as well. In my personal time, I set long-term goals. I enrolled in courses to improve my skills in leadership and communication. I started to read more about effective teamwork and how to overcome workplace challenges. This newfound passion fueled me to move forward, not just for myself, but for others who felt weighed down like I once did. As I grew stronger, I wanted to share all of this with those dealing with similar situations. I encouraged people to speak up, to recognize their worth, and to refuse to settle for less. Doing this made me appreciate how far I had come. The timid girl who hid from confrontation was becoming someone unafraid to voice her needs and desires. The change in me did not go unnoticed. Over time, even Laura began to act differently. As her behavior shifted, we found a way to coexist in the office without animosity. She started to provide input during meetings, and slowly, I understood that maybe she, too, was finding her path. Witnessing this gave me hope for any situation. With enough kindness, understanding, and a willingness to grow, transformations can happen. I finally embraced that my journey wasn't just mine alone. It was a reflection of everyone around me. I felt joy in knowing that I had the power to uplift others and make significant changes in our environment. Together, we could move toward a brighter, more positive workplace. As I stood at my desk one bright morning, I looked out the window, and for the first time, it seemed like open skies stretched endlessly ahead. I felt all my accomplishments merging into one vibrant future filled with possibilities. Empowered, inspired, and ready, I smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. As I stood looking out of the window, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This journey had taught me more than I ever expected. I had learned to stand tall and be strong, and those lessons were valuable far beyond my current workplace. I could navigate challenges with confidence, but I also realized that change always brings new opportunities. I began to think about my future and what I truly wanted. After several months of growth and support from my team, an exciting opportunity came my way. An opening for a project manager position at another company was announced. The role aligned perfectly with my career ambitions. This could be my chance, the thought raced through my mind, but a part of me hesitated. Would I take another leap into the unknown? Taking a deep breath, I turned to my newfound support system. I shared my thoughts with Sarah over lunch. "What do you think? Should I apply?" I asked eagerly, but with a hint of nervousness. Sarah smiled brightly, clearly excited by the idea. "Absolutely. This is your moment, Jamie. You've come so far, and you deserve to chase your dreams. Do it." Her encouragement filled me with determination. I decided right then that I would apply for the new position. I reflected on everything I had learned, the importance of standing up for myself, seeking support, and leading with confidence. I knew I could carry these lessons into a new role. My heart raced with excitement as I crafted my application, detailing my experiences and the transformations I had experienced. As I clicked "Submit" on my application, waves of emotions flooded through me. I felt hopeful, but I also acknowledged the risks. However, I reminded myself that every step outside of my comfort zone had brought me growth. I was proud to be taking this step, regardless of the outcome. I had learned to embrace uncertainty and push forward. Days turned into weeks as I awaited a response. During this time, I remained focused on nurturing the relationships I had built at my current job. I took on more project initiatives, leading discussions, and continuously improving my skills. Every small success reminded me that I was capable of achieving my goals. Finally, I received the call inviting me for an interview. My heart leaped with joy. I realized how much I had grown. The nervousness I once felt was replaced by excitement. I prepared diligently, practicing answers and visualizing success. I arrived at the interview filled with confidence, ready to share my story and unique experiences. After a few days of anxious waiting, I received the news I had been hoping for. I got the job. My heart sang with happiness as I thought about moving on to a new chapter. I reflected on my time in my old office, knowing I had turned challenges into triumphs. As I packed up my things on my last day, I took a moment to say goodbye to my colleagues, grateful for the journey we shared. "Thank you for everything," I said. "You taught me so much heart, and I hope we will all continue to grow together." Their support had meant the world to me, and I felt a deep sense of connection. Walking out of the office for the last time, I felt both excitement and gratitude. The journey ahead was uncertain, but everything I learned had prepared me for it. I knew I would face new challenges, but I also knew I could handle whatever came my way. I stepped into the future, ready to embrace it all: new experiences, new connections, and endless opportunities for growth. The path stretched before me like a ribbon beneath the open sky, and I felt ready to run toward it, knowing that I had the strength to overcome anything. I was no longer just a timid assistant. I was Jamie, a confident professional, ready to shape my own destiny.